right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. You know, let's begin at the beginning, my friend. Let's talk about, I know most of the folks here are well familiar with QHHT, but if there are individuals here that aren't, if you could give us a little overview per your mom, how this started. We're talking about going deep, deep, deep in the somnambulistic level of healing. I remember hearing that years ago. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that somnambulistic level, it's a level of trance is what it is. And it's a normal state that we all go into. Some people want to make it really mystical and oh my gosh, what's going on here? And this is voodoo land or woo-woo land or whatever it is. You know, it's so unusual. But we all go there. You know, we go into all these states at least twice a day when we go to sleep at night and when we wake back up. We're moving in and out of these things. And somnambulism is just when we get in so deep into an area that we become the actual personality. So like if you were in hypnosis and you're visiting another time, then you would actually become that personality. Let's look at it a different way. Let's look at it when you're in the dream state and you are, you know, you're asleep, you've gone through these things, you're starting to see pictures, you're starting to dream. And if you had these dreams where you're so enthralled and there's you and there's these other people, these other characters, but if you don't, these people, that's a person that but they don't look like them. And then there's you, and if you happen to see yourself, you don't look like you, but it's you. Okay, so there's things like that and you have become that personality that is you. All right, so it's just kind of let's just take it down to that translates over into what we do in QHHT. As far as that. Now, as far as what mom did, she was, oh my goodness, this goes way back. And I know you don't want that full on story, but she and my father were stationed. My father was military. We were stationed in the Philippines a long time ago, back in the 60s. And he was learning he thought it'd be fun to learn how to do hypnosis, as a hobby. And that's what he ended up being very, very good at it. When he came back stateside, he was helping servicemen when they were like being called back or they had issues going on. So he was helping them. My mother was being his assistant. Okay. And just helping him. And they just accidentally stumbled into someone wanting some help. And she went into a past life. This is in the 60s. This is not when this was a normal thing to do. Now it's kind of normal. People talk about past lives. People talk about hypnosis. Hypnosis was even on the edge over then. So this is what started the whole thing. So let's fast forward to, that's when they were introduced to it. And it was all because they were very, very curious that they stumbled into this arena and what it could entail. They ended up taking this person, through like 5 lives back to when she was created. I mean, can you imagine? That would have been like, and it was. And they went to a spirit side where, all this information that we, especially in America, we had not been exposed to this kind of stuff, right. So that was the beginning of it. And then fast forward to when she went, like all of us, the kids, we were all graduating and getting married, doing different things. And so she has empty nest syndrome. And she's like, okay, what do I want to do now? Because she just stopped everything. There was a big reason for all of that being stopped and put on a back burner. But she's like, what do I want to do now? I don't, I want to do something. And I feel like I want to do that thing that we did before. I want to do that time traveling. Because it was literally time traveling. You were visiting these people in their time, in that time, in their places. So she's like, I'm going to do that. So she started going back and she was working on that again and experimenting with it. And looking at different techniques, because the technique that she was exposed to with my father was the very old-fashioned one, watch the shiny object and all the testing and all those things. That's what was done back then. Well, she started learning that because enough time had passed where hypnosis was getting a little bit more, not mainstream yet, but it's more accepted. And so there were different ways of working with it, and there were visualization techniques and so she was studying those. And so she went through all that. She started working with people, and gradually she just kept working and working and working until she designed her own technique. She just kept, I like this, I don't like this, I like the effects of this. And she just people kept finding her. I mean, she would say, I live in the mountains of Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere, and people would find her. You know, they just did. And but anyway, so with that, she started writing books based on all the information that she was getting from these past times. Remember, it's time travel. You're in these time periods and you're seeing people living in the way that they actually lived. So you're getting history the way it actually occurred. My mother is that's cool. She is a huge history fan. She loved to do research. This was like her wonderful, wonderful sandbox to play in. She absolutely loved it.
You really believe, Julia, that it was the time travel element, the historical context of all of this that really got her hooked on bringing this.
Yes, that's what got her in. And if you notice her first books, they're all about that. You know, they're about these different things that happen in these different, it's like the one, like Jesus. She has 2 Jesus books where these people were actually with Jesus and in different scenarios and things. And then there's another one, the bombing at Hiroshima, someone that went through the bombing, you know, so it's like you have a person's experience right there. Nostradamus, now that's a whole other thing, but that was an assignment that was given to her by Nostradamus himself to retranslate all of his quatrains. So, you know, and that was all of these things are done through this hypnosis. You're actually visiting these people. You're actually there with them in their time, period. And, so.
Did their voices change that you understand from your mom, the cadence of the voice? I mean, did they take on actual characteristics of that time period while they were in that state?
Yes, many of them did. Most of them did, I'll say. Yeah. Because they are so that's a somnambulistic state. They are taking on the personality of that person. And sometimes they would speak another language.
Yes, we've heard that before. We've absolutely heard that before, whether we're talking about individuals who feel they've had contact with non-human intelligence and are even from that a particular species will speak what Mary Rodwell calls light language.
Yes.
Going back to, Julia, people, particularly in the Pentecostal and Baptist church, some of the churches spoke in tongues. My grandmother was one, not often.
Yeah.
She would go into literally an altered state and start to speak. And I was a little girl going, Mommy, what is Granny saying? And she wouldn't recall. When she came out of it, she wouldn't even recall what she had said. I'd say, Granny, what did you just do? She said, what are you talking about?
Wow.
So there's so this was sort of an automatic altered state.
Absolutely.
This is just fascinating. So Julia,
tapping into that,
yeah. Would it be fair to say, and I'm still learning about the dynamics involved here with QHHT, but that all of QHHT, when you're working on an individual, is it always predicated on time travel, or are there exceptions?
Well, it will go to wherever is appropriate. So that's the predication is on each of us has a higher self. And this is part of Mom's journey after she was doing all of this history. And then she was introduced to the ETs, you know, and she got several books written on ETs because they were teaching her directly. So here we go again, you know, teaching. Then it went from there into this other realm. She's like, this is something different. And it was like, it went into this area of everything, you know, all the knowledge, all the information. So anything you ever wanted to know, that realm. And so that's when, and that part was teaching her, it's like, it's essentially a person's higher self or oversoul, or, you know, it's like that great big part of ourselves that connects us to the source, you know, so it's that part that knows everything and then knows everything about us. So it knows what to do next. Now that part you are contacting in a QHHT session, you are contacting that part of a person for them.
Okay.
Now coming in, that part, we all have that. We all have that. I call it the big me. We all have our bigger part. And that is guiding the whole session. And they are determined. They will take the person to the most appropriate time and place. That's the predication. So it will go wherever the higher self deems appropriate for that person.
Interesting.
So if they need to see another life, then they will. If they need to see a future life, if they need to see another dimension, they will. Or if they need to just go right directly to them and talk to them, they will.
Okay, so you could very well be tapping the individual in their current life, but from a perspective that only the oversoul can see.
Yes. Yes.
And we all have that. Here's a question. Oh my gosh, is this not fascinating, you guys? Look, I'm looking at everyone. I'm trying not to, I want to focus on you, but I'm seeing everyone come in and I'm so excited, so grateful that y'all are here. Your mom, and we can't have a conversation with you. And you know, I know you love to talk about your mom. I love to talk about your mom, and I see your mom in you.
Oh, thank you.
Did your mother ever, in her later years, perhaps, ever get QHHT sessions herself by someone else? You've been asked that before?
I have been asked that before, and no, she did not.
Really?
She wanted me to do a session on her, and I said, no way.
Really? Yeah. Well, just a little pressure. Just a little
bit. And she's like, I wouldn't be critiquing you. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So and now, you know, in hindsight, I you know, but at the time, no, it was, I felt pressure, and you know, I don't know. It would have been nice, but she got her answers in other ways. So, and then toward the end, she started hearing them herself. So,
wow,
that was good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess the thought came to me, Julia, because when you think about the chronology, the story that you just shared with us about how this all started, how it all began.
Yes.
And it seems as though it's a very arbitrary path. We know it isn't. I mean, those of us here in today, no, there's no such thing. I don't believe there is. And yet you wonder if her oversoul had been giving her signals for sort of navigating her in this direction. And if so, would this have come out had she been taken to that level? Or maybe she already knew that.
I think she already knew it. She was tapped in much more than she would ever acknowledge. She was, I mean, when she was writing the books, everything, she went into this whole other zone. When she did a session, she was in a whole other zone. So she was completely tapped in. It's similar to going into a trance yourself. So and then that's where her questions came in. If you look, her questions are so good. And I think it's because she was directly tapped in, getting that information from them. So she didn't have to. Now, when I say she didn't have a QHHT session, that doesn't mean she was never hypnotized, because she was in the beginning by people that she knew that did other methods. And that's how she developed this technique, was by having these done on her. She was like, oh, I didn't like how that felt. I didn't like, and that's really important, is to have it. Yeah. To know what it feels like. And then as she started developing hers, then she was watching her people and how they responded, how they did things with different parts. And so that's how she knew, okay, I want to take this out. And I was a big part of her experimentation, you know, so I was her guinea pig. I was one of her guinea pigs.
So you've been QHHT'd by her?
Yes.
I never said that.
Yeah, I was QHHT'd before it was QHHT.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. How brilliant that, and I think that this makes a lot of sense in terms of, if you wish to develop your own protocol in whatever modality it is, that first you become the recipient of that modality, and sort of go through it constructively to decide what you tweak, what you'd eliminate, what you'd emulate. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely. Can you, this is a new thing, QHHT. Can you QHHT yourself if you're trained?
Well, and a lot of people ask that too. Can you use this for self-hypnosis? And the clicker there is, you go so deep in a QHHT session that it would be difficult to ask yourself. So you go into that other level that you wouldn't be aware enough to, you'd have to keep yourself up to be able to ask yourself questions. And people say, well, I could record this. It's like, yeah, but who's going to ask the questions? See, so it comes into that. Now, there are parts of it. We teach you everything, how to do it with someone else, but it teaches you how to, in turn, speak to your higher self. Because you're learning how to do it in the session, then you know how to do it with yourself. You know how to do all the parts. So you can't. And if you have trouble sleeping at night, you can do the induction. It helps you go back to sleep. So you'll go to sleep. You know. So
many people need that. So right now, we're going to get deeper into this, guys, about why we're here today. But as these things are coming up, I just see so much applicability to what's going on right now. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to watch what's next, plus more to explore. And don't forget to subscribe to Higher Journeys.